Okay, so good evening all. So today let's explore about Docker, what is Docker and how to use it and so on. Okay, so before that, let's install Docker container and before that I'll explain some theoretical concepts how Docker works and so on. Okay, for example, let's consider this is my machine. Let the color be black. Okay, and this is my friend's machine. Okay, this is my laptop and this is my friend's laptop. Okay, so the problem is I'm running in Linux. I use Linux as an operating system and he used Windows. My friend used Windows. So what happens? They both share the different architecture. Your Windows is much more different than Linux. Okay, so it might be in handling hardware, software, and so much more difference are there in the both the operating systems. So what happens? The packages which we are using for the same project also are different. Okay, for example, if I want to build a calculator, the packages which I am using for Windows or the code which I am using for Windows will not work for my Linux most of the time because it will throw you an package error. So that's why some people used to say it works on my machine, won't work on your machine because maybe due to the global packages or in some people won't add it for requirements and so on. So that was the error. The software will run on this machine, will won't run on this machine. Okay, that software won't run on this machine. So to overcome this, what we're doing is simple. So we take one, just an example, we take one bucket, it's an empty bucket. Okay, so now this both has an OS, this both operating system has its own OS, it has Windows and it has Linux. So what I'm doing is I'm just assigning one OS here. Let me set it as Linux. I'm just setting this bucket to a Linux OS. I can set any OS, it's your wish. You can use Mac OS, you can use Windows and anything. For now I'm just using Linux, and I will set some space for all the requirements for all the libraries, and this much space is for my code. So what I do, in my Windows I create this bucket, I install this operating system in it, I install all the dependencies which is suitable with my operating system, and then I will run my code. So what happens during this time, my code should not sorry, my code will not focus on this operating system. My code will focus or it run accordingly to the package which it has, and also it will focus on the operating system which it is contain which this container is handling. So that's why we call it as Docker. So what Docker is simple, so what Docker does is simple. For example, now this is a full container, and this container don't need any external packages because internally it has its own packages as well as it has its own OS, right? Also it has its own code. So we are uh, just by using this container, I can run it on my just this container, I can run it on my Windows, even I can run it on my Linux and also in different OS. So what happens while running, they won't use your system packages, they directly use the packages which is present inside the container. So what happens, even you write the code, even you write the code in Windows or even you write the code in Linux, if that program runs inside this container, then that program will run anywhere. Okay, in anywhere, in any OS it will run. So this container we call it as Docker. So yeah, and also for example yeah, that is how Docker works. Now let's install Docker. To install Docker, search for Docker in your search engine and click on this Docker desktop. So click on this download Docker desktop and select your operating system. So here I'm using Linux, so I'll select Linux operating system. So you have a good documentation here. You refer this documentation and download Docker desktop in your system. Okay, so I'm using Ubuntu here. Okay, so if you follow this step only if you are using Linux machine. If you are using Windows, you should go with these steps. This step is for Windows. Okay, you will get some executable file, so on. So yeah, first I will download the files for Ubuntu. Okay, it's downloading here. Next I should install using terminal. Okay, I have my Docker image here. So sudo apt install. Now the Docker is being installed on my Linux machine. So in Windows it's actually easy. You don't need this terminal and all. It will automatically download an executable file. You should open and it will ask you for some command. After that it will automatically install in your system. Okay, so now download has been completed. Search for a Docker. Okay, you can see that the Docker desktop icon has been appeared. Let me open that. Close this one. Okay, even I'll minimize this one. Click on accept. Then it will ask you for sign in. If you want better sign in, I'll just skip this step. Okay, and also you have all the documentations here regarding what is Docker and what is container. I have just explained what exactly container is. So inside the container we are putting our OS, we are putting our required packages, and we are putting our code, and then we are running that container. So from that container can be executed anywhere. Okay, so now okay, yeah, now I have installed Docker. Let me open terminal again. So after installing Docker, just check Docker is installed, Docker hyphen version. So you can see that Docker has been installed in my system. Okay, so in Python we have a first program, the first program which we write in any programming language is hello world, right? The same thing even in Docker we have a the first project, that is hello world. So it's actually simple: Docker pull hello world. So here how this works I'll explain. So for example, okay, Docker is nothing but my it's the name of the software. Pull is nothing but what it will do is it will automatically download. So we have git clone, right? The same thing, we have something called as Docker repository. How we have GitHub repository, the same thing we have Docker repository where all the containers are stored, right? All the containers are stored. Even I can push my container and you can download my container. So the same thing, that's why to download that container we use pull command. And hello world is nothing but it's not a just a name, it's a name of the container. So you have a right to give a name for your container. So here this is a global already declared, the name of that container is hello world. Okay, so now I'm pulling that already built container. This container is already built by someone and its name is hello world. You can see that it's pulling. Okay, so yeah, after pulling you should run that container. How to run? It's actually easy. Now I just have I just pulled the container. Let me run. Docker run hello world. I got the output. So what is the output? This is the output. Hello world. This message shows the installation appeared working properly and so on. Okay. So this is your first project. Okay. Let me clear this. Okay. So in Docker, as I said, you can use any OS, you can use Ubuntu, you can use Windows, you can use macOS, and also uh, there is no necessity of using OS. Even you can use only just Python. For example, if you just need Python, you can use just Python. That is Python image, Node image, and so on. Okay, so because OS are heavy, so if you don't need that, you can even just install Python and you can run there itself. So if you want to see that we have something called as Docker PS. So what Docker PS is nothing but it will show you the how many containers are currently running. So now there is no container running, I mean no any servers are running under Docker, so that's why it's empty. Okay, so if you run something and if you run Docker PS, it will show you the output like which containers are running and so on. If you want to see the images, so Docker image, so we just pulled only one image. That one image is nothing but Docker hello world latest. So this is the image which I have pulled, and it's just taking 25 KB, and the contents inside it is 9.49. Okay, so this is the default one, and this is the image which we have pulled. Even you can create your own image. I will guide you how to create your own image. Okay, if you want to remove this image, like if you want to delete this image, if you don't need to save some space, just use Docker remove and use this ID. So we have this ID, right? Don't copy the name, you should copy the ID. Okay, it's RMI. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, for example, sorry, there is some error. Docker images clear, and Docker images again. So this is the ID, and yeah, this we are running, that is the container ID. Okay, even just use Docker rm, it should work. Okay, then just a second. Okay, so just let me open Docker. No, not this. Okay, so you can see my container here, this one. You can directly delete from here itself. Okay, so this is the best method, and yeah. So now if you want to run, okay, basically Docker has its own shell and so on, that let's see later. For example, if you want to create a simple web server, so let's create a simple Python program, and let's create a simple web server now for yeah. So first let's create a folder. I'll create a folder, that is make directory. I just name it as Python Docker. Okay, so after creating a folder, let's create one app. So open your code editor and create a file, that is app.py. So the same how you write for a Flask server. I hope you're familiar with that. Let's create a simple web server. First you should create a it's actually easy. Create an empty folder first, and open that folder in your VS Code. Next, create a file, that is app.py, and we are using Flask. Import Flask. Next, app is equal to Flask underscore name, and let's add one route. And define home. Return hello world. App dot run of host. So let's for now just set as 00, and port number. I hope you're familiar with port number. So a server can have only one port number. It cannot have more than we cannot have duplicate port numbers here. Okay, just a second. Okay, so basically we cannot have duplicate port number and so on. Okay, now I need a requirement file. Let me create a requirements file. That is, we need Flask. So this is the package which we used to run. Okay, so basically what happens, this is a simple Flask program. Okay, this is a simple Flask program which I will be running now. I am not using any Docker, nothing, just a simple Flask program. So how to run this one? I may get some errors because I have not yet installed the packages. Okay, Python 3. Okay, yeah, I have Python here. So I got the output that as hello world. I'll refresh the same output and you can see the logs here. Okay, now what we will do is, now I want to run this on my friend's machine, but I don't know whether he has installed this Flask or not. So what I can do is, instead of manually installing, like asking him to install pip install and fixing the version, he might use different Python version. So the Python version I'm using is, okay, it's 3.14.4. He might be using 3.10 and so on. So the problem is, what happens, as Python version changes, updates, and even the libraries change. Okay, so libraries has its own version. Some will work on for some will work for the specific Python version. Okay, even the libraries has its own version. So if I type pip freeze, you might able to see some, yeah. So these are the version. Okay, these are my libraries, and if I have Flask here, and its version is 3.1.3. okay, so the libraries has version as well as the main Python has its own version. So the problem is, for example, for some versions, the libraries won't support. For some version the libraries won't support, and to overcome this, what we're doing, we're just using Docker. So what I'll do is, in my Docker, I will assign that the Docker container should only use Python 3.14.4, and also it should use the same library version. So how I can do this? It's actually easy. What first thing you should do is, you should create a Docker file. Just create a Docker file. No extension should be there. Just Docker file. And here from Python. So which version we are using? We are using 3.14, right? 3.14.4. Next, we should specify the working directory. It's a default. Okay, you should use this every time, working directory /app. Next, so now I have created an empty container. So what is the second step? First, I have installed Python 3.14 inside that container. For example, I just have an empty container here. I just installed Python 3.14 and I have just created a empty set of folders. Okay, I'll just explain in this method. Okay, just a second. Okay, I have just created a container, and now I have installed my Python 3.14. This is a Python 3.14 file. Okay, and I have created an empty folder, that is slash app. I have created an empty folder as slash app. Okay, just a second. So this is an empty folder. So now what I should do, I should copy all the files to this one, then I can run. Okay, so what I will do is simple. Next, after creating an empty folder, I will copy my files, that is requirements.txt. I'll copy this file and paste it inside my empty container. So after, what we are doing, we should run. So just type run. We are running. How we are executing this requirements? Pip install -r requirements.txt. So after installing all the requirements, again we are copying the same. So what this dot space dot does is, it does, so first we have copied these requirements, then we have installed the packages inside that container. But so yeah, now we just have all the packages, here, but now we don't have any files, right? So that's why what we're doing is simple. We are using this command. So what this command does is, from the current directory, so this dot stands for current directory, that is this file. Okay, this full directory. From this full directory, it will copy and paste it to the current directory. So which is the current, so this dot refers to this path. So okay, this dot refers to this path. So the two dots means, it's simple. From this folder, from this Python Docker folder, everything is copied and pasted inside this folder, that is slash app directory. So that's why we're using this copy space dot space dot. And next, actually what happens now, this Docker is tightly closed. Okay, it's in an airtight container. Just imagine it's in an airtight container, and I cannot access my server. So my server is running inside this, I cannot access my server. So what we do is, basically we have a concept of port, right? So what happens, I will just open one port here. Let's imagine the port number is 5000. I hope you are familiar with port and so on. Let's open this 5000, and I'll expose this as 5000. So now what happens? Okay, so both are 5000. Okay, so basically both are 5000. So what happens? Okay, I'll just delete instead of making confusion. So don't get confused. I'll just open one set of port, or it's a space like this, because we need some space where we can communicate with our server, right? So I will just name this open door as port. Okay, it's port 5000. By default my Docker is an airtight container, so I want to access this, because if it's airtight, then it's of no use, right? So that's why I'm just creating one port where from the external network I can access my through this port I can access my server. Okay, so that's how this works. So that's why we're exposing this expose 5000, and this is the final. So this is the final command, that how we run our program. It's actually simple, python app.py. So just type python comma, and app.py. Save this one. Clear this. Okay. So how we can, so now we have created a Docker file, but you might be wondering how to create an image. So we just created a Docker file, how to build an image, and how to push and so on. So it's actually simple. You should just type Docker. So after building, make sure this Docker build command, we should use this build command -t. It's a tag, and you can give any name. I'll just name is Docker Python server space dot. So what this will do, Docker, it access your software. Okay, it's just your software, and we are passing a build command that it should build a container. Now we have just passed all the code and all the instructions. It should build the container. Tag is nothing but it's a name, so the name is nothing but Docker Python server. So -t stands for tag, it's a name, and space dot. So where I have the Docker file, so this dot represents the current directory, and this full command will search for your Docker file. So where I have the Docker file, inside the Python Docker folder. So inside the Python Docker folder I have the Docker file. So that's how this works. For example, if you have a second folder, let's imagine if you have a second folder like this. Okay, so you have second folder, and inside that you have a Docker file. So then it's simple. Instead of just dot, use this /g, then dot. Don't get confused, because it wants the location of your Docker file, so that's why. So dot represents the current directory. I'll just push it outside and delete this file. Okay, click on enter. Okay, the name should be in the lowercase, the tag name. And we have second error here, that is copy requirements.txt space dot, that which I have forgot. So this file it should copy and paste it in the .app folder in the current directory in the Docker, so that I have, because it's in copy, of course we have a source as well as destination. And again we have, okay, I just forgot to save this. Okay, let me run it again. So now you can see that my image is being pulled 3.14.4. You can see all the activities here. It's the size of my Python 3.14. Even you get the slim version, which you can use, that I'll talk about later. And this line got executed. Now we are installing all the requirements. So we got some errors here. Pip install -r requirements.txt. What's the error? Did not satisfy, could not open requirements. It's a spelling mistake, a small typo is there. Yeah, it's a spelling mistake here. Let me save this and let me build it again. The same command you should use, docker build -t docker python server space dot. Okay, now it's executing. It's collecting all the packages. Okay, now the image has been built. Now the Docker image has been built. So how I can see my Docker image has been built? So just minimize this and open your terminal and type Docker images, and here you can see that Docker Python server -latest, and the size of that file is I mean the full disk usage it's making is 1.64 GB and 241 MB. So now how I can run this one? It's actually simple. How we ran the Docker hello world, the same thing. So if you want to run, just run run docker python server latest. So now you can see my flask server is running without using python and I mean not python flask server app.py. Just by using this command, now my docker server is running. So when I click this one, we are getting error. So what is the error? Why it's not connecting? Because we have not yet exposed the port. So we have something called as port number, right? So that we should expose. So here we in the docker file we have initialized the port only for the server. Okay, this is only the we have two types of port. One is input port as well as output port. So here while running, just it's actually simple. So after this much, here docker run, so just specify your port number. So the port number is nothing but 5000. That is the internal port number as well as the external port number which we are accessing, 5000. Let me open this one. You can see hello world here. So now let's do some experiments here. Let's change the port number. I will make it 5050. Okay, and let me try to run this one. Okay, so now what happens? Actually my server which is present inside the docker is running in this port. Okay, the server for example, okay, if possible I'll just show you. Okay, actually this server, why the rest is not visible? Just a second. Okay, so this server is using the port 5000. Okay, 5000, this is the inside port. So what we should specify is, we should specify, so if this is 5000, you can pair it with any port which you like. For example, before we have just paired it with the 5000 again. Okay, or else for example now we have just used 5050, right? So let me close this one. Let's see what happens. Let me refresh. We are getting an error for the same number. I'm getting an error. So I'll just change this to 5050. I'll just change my, okay, we got some errors again here. Okay, just a second. I'll close this and yeah, this is 5000. So okay, so the port we are using the port we are using is 5050. Although the Flask server code, I mean it's exposing in 5000. Even you can see that the port is 5000, but we are getting in 5050 port. So why this one? Because this is the with the help of docker we can do this. Because what I have initialized this, instead of exposing, I'm asking docker, I'm asking, now the docker is working as a middleman. Just imagine, I'll just delete this everything. Okay, so this is my Flask server. This is my Flask server. He is talking in the port 5000. Okay, my web server, and this is Mr. Docker. Okay, so he is receiving in 5000 and he is exposing it in 5050. So that's why what I'm doing. So what happens, if this is my browser, if I use localhost and this port number. Using this Docker, I am accessing this one because as this my web browser is inside a container, I cannot directly access this one, right? So that's why I'm just asking my Docker to expose the external port as 5050 and to connect to its internal port, that is 5000. Okay, look, this is 5000. Okay, you can see the code here, port 5050 as well as 5000. So this is how it works. Clear. And also yeah, you can see the logs and so on. So there is multiple which we can do now. Okay, yeah, for example, what happens if I run this one, my terminal, if I want to run a next command, or if I want to run, so for example, I want to run 3 Docker servers. I want to run, we have Docker Compose that I'll talk about later. For example, I'm just running only one server now. The same thing, I want to run different services. So now what happens if I want to run different services, I should stop this, right? I should stop this, only then I can run, or else whether if I type, it won't work. So that's why what we have is, we have something called as detach. So here after run, use -d and enter. So now my Docker server will automatically run in the background without getting this logs. It will automatically run in the background so that I can run if I want, I can run different servers. Okay, so let's check whether it's working properly. Look, it's working properly, 5050. So let's run another server. I'll just search for the port 3000. Okay, now the 3000 port is empty, you can see it here. Now let me run the same server in the different port, that is 3000 port. Even it got detached. Let me refresh this one. You can see the output, hello world. So now my 2 servers are running in a different port. So in without Docker, what we used to do is, we used to change the port number to to solve the conflict, right, in Flask and so on. But basically it's hard, and you should hard code it. So in Docker it's actually easy. So let's see the Docker running servers, Docker PS. So there are 2 servers running. So one I have created 31 seconds ago, that is the 3000 port, just now I have created, and this I have created a minute ago in the port 5050. Docker stop. How to stop the Docker all the running servers? It's easy. Docker stop, as well as paste the container ID, this one, copy this and paste it here. So now my this 3000 server should stop. Let me refresh. This is 3000. Look, this server has been stopped. So let me again run Docker PS. Now I have only one server. Let me stop it. That is Docker stop 86. Okay, I'll just copy paste this one. Okay, let me clear it. Let me run Docker PS. Now I have no any servers running, and Docker ls, sorry, okay, just images. So these are my 3 images. So this is how the Docker works. So if you want to remove the images, it's actually simple. Docker RMI, copy this ID, it should work basically. and paste it here. So we are getting some error, unable to detect must be force image container. Let me check whether Docker is running it. Okay, exited and so on. So everything, these are the logs, like which Docker server which we have executed, and what is the status and so on. Like if you are into DevOps, you need this one. So let's remove the container. If it's running, let's try. Okay, so one container got removed, this container got removed, and so on. You can remove multiple containers. So let's force remove the image. So to remove the image, it's actually easy. Docker rmi -f and the image id. Oh, what is the image id? The image id is this one. Copy this, paste it here. Okay, so now I just have two Docker images, and this image has been deleted from your system. So this is the uses of Docker, and in the next session let's discuss about Docker repository and so on. Okay, yeah, thank you for attending.